EATT.
Environment, art.
Welcome to the EATT Magazine podcast. We're going straight into an interview with the artist Tony Lloyd, who's held over 20 solo shows throughout Australia, Asia and Europe, including Melbourne, Sydney, Hong Kong, Beijing, London and Amsterdam. And he features in this edition of EATT Magazine. And you can get show notes and more details at eattmag.com if you want to go to the web. And in this edition of the magazine, his work is entitled Slow Motion. And these are a series of very interesting images. When you get inside the magazine, you can see quite clearly how powerful these are, in a sense, because there's something we all know so well. There's something that we see, that we experience, that we can relate to, and the works finish brilliantly with a single sentence, which is, "You're going to make me lonesome when you go." And that's the last image. We're going to load this podcast up on YouTube. It's going to be our first podcast on YouTube. And we're just going in now. We meet Tony at an event called Baby It's Hot Outside, which is a part thought experiment, part Q&A. It's from Thought Lab 14, which invites a guest panel to interact with an audience, to collaborate on ideas, analyse evidence, and dream of alternative futures. It's quite interesting. It's on SoundCloud. We'll put that link also into the show notes, and that's been put on. It's an event that's been organised by the Carlton Connect, which is a fantastic innovation and entrepreneurship precinct with a focus on sustainability and resilience. So without further ado, we'll jump straight into the interview now with Tony.
I've been involved in a couple of science exhibitions over the last few years, of science-related exhibitions, with Renee Beale, who's one of the organisers of this event.
Yep, sure.
And also, previous to that, I've been curated into a couple of shows that dealt with climate change, curated by Professor Linda Williams at RMIT. So that kind of gave me the double, I guess, sciencey kind of background.
Right, yeah, sure.
As an artist who doesn't really know a great deal about science.
That's right. And did you find, I guess, as an artist not knowing much about science, did you find it easy to come in and introduce your work and bring your ideas to a part of the scientific community in a sense? Or did you feel like you were walking into an environment that was quite alien, and how did you feel about that?
Well, all of the above. I'm very interested in science, I've got to say.
Yeah, okay.
And I listen to a lot of science podcasts while I paint.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And these ideas do filter into the work.
Okay.
But when I did a collaboration with the chemistry department at Melbourne Uni a couple of years ago, I found that a very difficult thing to get my head around at first.
Right, yeah, sure. And what was the basis of that work with that group?
Well, they were studying free radicals.
Right, okay.
So subatomic activity.
Right, yeah.
And here am I painting these big mountains.
Right, okay, yeah. Because when you said that, I had this vision of you standing there. I could see paint splattered in millions of directions, and you were in a white jacket. But I guess it wasn't like that at all.
I was in a white jacket.
Oh,
you got
right,
that bit right.
Okay, good.
No.
Oh, okay, so that would have been fun then as well, even though it was challenging.
It was great fun.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And what I did was I just had to find a way of translating this bizarre activity that happens at the subatomic level into what I do, which is mainly landscape-based work.
Okay.
And so I tried to make paintings of landscapes that were reacting in a way that chain reactions of atoms occur.
Right, okay. and did the people participating in that project, did they see it instantly? Were they able to grasp your take on it, or were they standing there blindly going, how was that received?
They didn't see it straight away.
Right, okay. Is that because
and
they were scientists?
I wouldn't think that an art audience would see it straight away either.
Yeah, okay.
I like strangeness in my work.
Yeah.
It's a big part of my work, and I do look at science as a fresh field of strangeness for me to ponder.
Yeah. Okay.
So, so I don't really mind that it got the idea got lost in translation, but because it's like translating poetry or transposing music into a different key. That's the way I'm thinking of it.
Yeah, sure. And I guess the important thing for you is your translation. It's all about your translation of their work, their event, how you perceive that in terms of your worldview, and then how you express that in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, and I like images that are both seductive and unsettling, right? And finding new ways to challenge how the world looks, or new kind of just proposing different ways of looking at the world.
Yeah, sure.
That's a great way of finding that mixture of familiar and unfamiliar, and seductive and unsettling.
That's right. And I guess that's where art actually does manage to do those things quite beautifully, doesn't it? In a way that perhaps, obviously, some other forms of artistic expression don't quite manage to marry all of those things together in such a way.
Well, art's great at being provocative, I think.
Yeah.
In terms of visual arts, if you compare it to advertising, say advertising is about narrowing the range of interpretations, and getting a single meaning across, whereas art is much more about generating many different meanings from the work.
Yeah,
and raising questions.
That's right. And so, I guess that particular part of raising questions I find very interesting, and it's quite amazing that we're actually at the university tonight for this event. And so, in terms of the pieces that you've chosen, I'm pleased. As I said, I haven't seen them yet, so you're going to have to explain them to me as well as the listeners. So, what are the pieces that you've chosen in terms of the questions you're asking with each piece then?
Well, the background of this is the climate, art and climate equals change festival, and I don't think of myself as a climate change artist or an artist who is trying to raise awareness of climate change, but it's something that I'm aware of, and it's something that comes through in the work. I think you can certainly think of my work in terms of climate change.
Yep.
A lot of the work in this presentation I've got tonight is polar scenes or alpine scenes, mountains, kind of desolate, uninhabited zones.
Yep.
But then there'll be a trace of human activity in there. So you might see a jet stream, a contrail, going over the mountains.
Okay, that's right.
You can't look at ice and snow and a contrail without thinking of climate change. Really.
And I know that some of your previous works were also, I guess, one of the descriptions was landscapes without people in a way, and so I guess this is a continuing theme for you in a sense in terms of your work as well, isn't it? So that must have been quite good to, I guess, bring that theme or continue that theme from that place that you know so well. I think somebody described one of your pieces to do with isolation or
well, I don't like to put figures in the work, but I do like to put traces of human presence, or sometimes alien presence, or futuristic human presence in the work. And I quite like these uninhabited or uninhabitable zones because they're places where humans can't be.
Yeah.
But if I didn't put that element of human existence in there, or vapor trails and footprints, tracks, something like that, then it'd be kind of more about the natural beauty of the landscape.
Right, yeah, sure.
And if I did it, if I was more focused on people in the landscape, then it'd be about the people.
Yeah.
So I want to get a kind of sense of equal distance from both the natural world and the human environment in the work. And this is my strategy for doing that, so that the meaning of the work becomes a bit more ambiguous, I think, when it's not about the natural or the human.
That's right, and you've got to. I do know from the one piece that I have seen, which is exactly the piece you described with the trail through it. Yeah. I thought it was very provocative because it really raised a lot of questions for me. But I guess other people are going to interpret it differently, aren't they?
Of course.
So are you?
And I don't mind that. I mean, that's part of what art does. I mean, if you look at the landscape as fragile, then that human element is going to be threatening. But if you look at the human element as threatening, then the landscape can become hostile.
That's right, yeah. Yeah. And I guess you must also be genuinely surprised by how people react and interpret your work quite often.
Yeah.
Is there a recent example?
Especially when I put UFOs in the picture. I attract some interesting interpretations.
Right. Yeah, because I guess UFOs are not something people are familiar with so much in the art landscape to a degree.
No.
And yet that
science fiction in general actually doesn't really
that's right.
get into art
why do you think that is? Because I mean it's because I love science fiction, and I'm surprised really, I guess, that I think there's sort of an underground artistic sort of expression of science fiction and in a whole realm that we don't see in popular art or popular art culture.
Absolutely, genre.
That's right. But why do you think that we don't see a more expression of that sci-fi futuristic stuff in
I don't know. It could be snobbishness. It could just be that curators aren't interested in science fiction.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't.
I think we should blame the curators for this.
Yeah,
I haven't met many that really like science fiction.
but I've had. I mean, my UFO works have been pretty popular. All my spaceship works.
Yeah.
And my astronaut works.
Yeah.
They have been popular, and also I like them because they give. Speaking of that, getting that sense of distance from both the natural and the human environment, this gives you putting an alien in there is my way of putting a kind of an external viewpoint in there.
That's
so
right.
that alien becomes looking at us from the outside.
That's right, which is something we're not used to at all, is it? I imagine some people would be quite uncomfortable by that idea. They don't want to be looked at from the outside.
Oh yeah, sure.
So,
and that gets back to my idea of the unsettling, having that unsettling element.
That's right. So obviously tonight with those pieces. And you're going to be doing an introduction to the pieces as well, is that right?
Yeah, I think I'll give a brief introduction because they'll be displayed there.
Right,
so I'll tell them where I'm coming from with these sort of images.
Right, sure.
And then I think we get into the nitty-gritty of trying to work out how to save the world.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, I guess we'll probably be doing that. That'll be done by 8 o'clock, I would imagine. It won't take longer than 45 minutes.
Surely not.
It's not in that much of a mess that I can see. Well, not tonight anyway.
Not tonight. No. It's not hot outside.
That's right. And so I know that you've had lots of exhibitions, lots of work recently. What are we going to be looking forward to next? What's on the calendar for you later on this year, beginning of next year, in terms of new works that you're in the process of I guess creating in your mind without actually getting anything onto?
Well, I've started. Well, I'm still doing some mountain works.
Oh yeah, brilliant.
And the mountain works are kind of collapsing or melting rather than the snow melting. The whole kind of form is becoming a bit kind of liquid.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I'm doing is I've been working on a bit of video.
Okay.
Lately.
Right.
And one thing that I want to combine is the painting and the video, the old school film special effects of matte painting.
Okay.
Where you would.
What's that?
Well, the special effects would be a painting on glass,
right,
which was in front of an actual landscape or a scene.
Okay.
So if you think of Planet of the Apes,
yes,
when Charlton Heston rides his horse up to the Statue of Liberty that's sticking out of the sand.
Yeah.
The Statue of Liberty is a painting on glass, which is in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And Charlton Heston's in the distance.
So how did they manage that 3D look then? Because I remember that scene very well.
They had some great painters working for them.
Right. Wow, that is fantastic.
It's a kind of unsung 20th century painting tradition.
Really?
Painting history going on there.
Right. Wow, that's fascinating.
Thanks for joining us for that part one of the interview with Tony Lloyd, and we're going into the second video now. That's part two, which is Tony talking about where his next show is, and he gives us a little bit of detail on that, and he also gives us some tips for artists that are starting out. And so it's a really it's a great ending to that interview, and from them, of course, we go straight into the rest of the night. Finishing off with that, we've got some details of the magazine as well and what's in this issue.